Since the dawn of time, humanity has harbored a single powerful desire: to live in peace. From the drums of war in ancient dynasties to the endless rat race of the modern era, that longing has never ceased. Yet, the paradox is that the more people crave peace, the more chaos they create. They rush into the endless pursuit of fame, material wealth, and power, believing that having more will bring greater happiness. But when they finally grasp all they sought, they find their minds empty and restless, like a thirsty person in the desert who swallows sand but finds no relief. Looking back at history, many emperors sat on the highest thrones, but their hearts were heavy with fear and insecurity. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who unified China, conquered the world. But in his final years, he was terrified of death, desperately seeking the elixir of eternal life. He had everything, but peace was forever beyond his reach. In contrast, there were sages who lived in thatched huts, owning nothing but a book and the starry sky. Yet they achieved a serenity that 100 thrones could not provide. We live in an equally chaotic age: crowded streets, constantly flashing phone screens, and a flood of news that sweeps away all moments of quiet. Each person is like a small boat fighting a tornado, growing more exhausted with every struggle. The mind is torn by 1,000 thoughts: fear of failure, insecurity from others' judgment, and a craving for recognition. This is why peace has become a luxury, even though it is not something that can be bought or sold. But perhaps the answer lies not in how much more we can have, but in how much less we can hold on to. Less ambition, fewer illusions, and fewer delusions of success. This is precisely why the concept of tin, stillness, has become the highest state a person can attain. Tin is not the silence of a coward who avoids life, nor is it a state of apathy or indifference. Tin is the ability to live amid storms without being swept away. It is like a mountain in a hurricane, standing firm and unmoving, or a calm lake which reflects the sky clearly despite the wind and clouds. A person who achieves tin can walk through the bustling marketplace of life, yet their mind remains undisturbed. They do not need to cover their ears from the noise or turn their backs on the world. It is the clarity within their heart that sets them free. There is a parable that tells of a Zen master meditating by a river. A boatman rows past, making a loud noise and splashing water. His student worriedly asks, "Master, that person is disturbing our stillness. How can we meditate now?" The master smiles and replies, "The river does not lose its flow just because a boat passes. The mind is the same. If it is deep enough, nothing can disturb it." The important thing is that tin is not a supernatural ability reserved for special people. It is an art that can be cultivated, just as ancient warriors learned to remain calm in battle, as sages learned to smile in the face of adversity, and as great leaders used serenity as a source of strength. In Eastern philosophy, there are 4 principles considered to be the path to human perfection: 2. Compassion, Kim, simplicity, Hoa, harmony, and Tin, stillness. Compassion opens the heart, teaching us to love without being weak. Simplicity makes a person modest, both in material possessions and in mind. Harmony helps us flow with the currents of life without losing ourselves. But only when Tin is achieved do the other 3 principles become natural, effortless, and unforced. Stillness is the root of wisdom, the foundation of inner strength, and the only path to absolute freedom. Because only a person who can be at peace in a storm truly masters their life. And the question is, how does one achieve tin? The answer is not in dry dogmas, but in a long journey of practice, starting with the smallest things in life. A long journey that begins with a correct understanding of each principle: compassion, simplicity, harmony, and finally, stillness. People often think of compassion as merely being kind, but it is one of the noblest virtues a person can attain. People often mistake compassion for weakness, resignation, or the naive act of forgiving easily, which leaves them vulnerable to being exploited. But in the light of Buddhism, compassion is not a blind emotion. It is a strength, a form of wisdom, and a heart large enough to understand others' suffering, while being firm enough not to be swept into it. When he was alive, the Buddha was the very embodiment of compassion. He never held grudges, but he also never tolerated evil. When Devadatta tried to harm him, the Buddha did not resent him, but he also did not allow himself to become a victim. He faced the situation with wisdom and composure. The Buddha's compassion was not a silent acceptance of evil, but a spiritual power that prevented darkness from overcoming light. There is an ancient story about a man who was deeply insulted by someone in public. Instead of getting angry, he calmly smiled. The other person, enraged, asked, "Don't you feel humiliated?" The man replied, "If you offer me a gift and I do not accept it, the gift still belongs to you." This composure is a testament to compassion, not allowing oneself to be carried away by negative emotions, not retaliating with hatred, but maintaining the clarity to remain unharmed. In reality, the person who holds on to hatred is the one who suffers the most. Like a fire, the longer you hold on to it, the more it burns your heart. Many people have successfully taken revenge, but in the end, they are not happier. They only feel empty and bitter. Forgiveness, in its truest sense, is not about condoning wrongdoing, but about freeing yourself. Forgiveness is an act of wisdom, not of weakness. If we look deeply into life, we will realize that those who harm others are often victims of past hurts themselves. A cruel person may have once been a trampled child. A selfish person may have once lived in deprivation. Acknowledging this does not excuse their actions, but it prevents us from sinking to the same level of suffering. A truly compassionate person does not allow their mind to be invaded by the negative emotions of others. They can be sad, but they don't turn sadness into resentment. They can be disappointed, but they don't turn disappointment into hatred. There is a Zen parable about a Zen master whose temple was robbed. The thief took everything. When the master encountered the thief, he was not angry. He simply looked at him and said, "You've taken almost everything, but you've missed the most precious gift, the moonlight outside. Why didn't you take that with you?" His words were not naive, but the wisdom of a great soul who refused to lose his inner peace over something that was stolen. A truly compassionate person also does not blindly please others. Sometimes true love means pointing out a mistake so the other person can see the right path. If a parent only indulges their child in everything, that is not compassion, but the nurturing of weakness. Compassion requires courage, because sometimes the hardest way to love is to say no. In daily life, we are easily hurt by unintentional words and small betrayals. The natural reaction is to get angry, blame, or even seek revenge. But if we let our emotions lead the way, we become slaves to circumstance. Only by maintaining compassion do we stay in a proactive position. Compassion is a choice. It is how we decide not to let the darkness of others overshadow the light within ourselves. A truly compassionate person is not weak, but is the strongest. They have the ability to control their emotions, are not subdued by anger, and do not let external factors shake their inner state. And because of this, they become a source of light that helps others find their way. If one day you can be grateful to the person who once hurt you because they taught you how to be stronger, then your compassion has transcended the realm of emotion. It has become a strength. A strength that can help you walk through all of life's suffering without losing your inner peace. People often think that simplicity, theme, is merely about saving money, spending less, and living frugally. But its true, deeper meaning goes far beyond the numbers on a balance sheet. Simplicity is a life principle, a modest way of living not just in material things, but also in thought, speech, and action. When the mind is freed from all that is superfluous, a person can feel a sense of lightness and freedom, like someone who has cast off a heavy burden to walk with ease. Let's look back at history. The great sages and visionaries were never tied down by luxury. Lao Tzu once left the imperial court to live a simple life in the wilderness, for he knew that the more one accumulated grandeur, the more one would lose their clarity. Confucius, even in difficult times, serenely played his lute, unconcerned with the lack of food and clothing, because his wisdom was not clouded by material want. The ancients understood that the more you have, the more you worry. The greedier you are, the more vulnerable you become. There is a story about a monk who visited a wealthy merchant. Entering the mansion filled with gold and jewels, the monk showed no sign of being impressed, and simply looked on quietly. The merchant bragged, "You see, master, I have everything." The monk smiled and asked, "Are you happy?" The man sighed, "I am always afraid of losing things, always afraid of not being as good as others." At that, the monk said, "Then you are not the owner of these things. They are what are holding you captive." The story shows that simplicity does not mean giving up material possessions, but not letting them become your chains. In modern society, people easily fall into the cycle of consumption. The more items we have, the more cluttered our homes become. The more social relationships we accumulate, the more tangled our minds become. Many people think that constantly buying and hoarding will make them feel complete, but in reality, they are imprisoning themselves in a jail they built. A person who knows how to live with simplicity will be selective, keeping only what is necessary to leave room for the soul to breathe. Simplicity is not just about material things. It is also about minimalism and thought. Our minds are often like a messy room full of thoughts, worrying about the past, fearing the future, comparing ourselves to others, and being envious. How many of these thoughts are truly valuable? A mind cluttered with delusions only makes a person more tired. A person who practices simplicity will purify their mind, keeping only useful thoughts and discarding the meaningless ones. Then, the mind becomes clear, like a calm lake that reflects everything accurately. The same applies to speech. Many people are accustomed to talking too much, uttering 1,000 meaningless sentences, only to end up hurting themselves and others. Simplicity in speech is not silence, but knowing when to speak and when to be quiet. A wise person once said, "Words are like money. If you spend them wastefully, you will soon become poor." Indeed, a single wrong word can cause a wound that is hard to heal, while a well-timed silence can be more powerful than 1,000 justifications. A wise person does not need to speak loudly, because their presence alone is enough to convey their wisdom. Simplicity is also about being modest in action. People today are often caught in a frantic pace, thinking that doing more is better, but they forget that what's more important is doing the right thing. A smart person does not waste energy on meaningless tasks, but focuses on the most valuable ones. Working hard can bring results, but working with purpose brings wisdom and freedom. There is a fable about a bird. It always flew around looking for branches to build its nest, gathering every leaf and straw. Its nest was many times larger than those of other birds. But when a storm came, the overly heavy nest became a burden that prevented it from flying far, and it was eventually swept away. Meanwhile, the birds with small but sturdy nests managed to fly to safety in time. The lesson here is clear. Simplicity is knowing what is enough. It is not letting excess burdens rob you of your freedom. When a person truly lives with simplicity, they do not need to show off their possessions or prove their worth through what they own. Their true value lies in their wisdom and inner strength. Such a person is truly free, not controlled by material things, and not burdened by meaningless worries. And this freedom paves the way for a higher state: harmony. Harmony with oneself, with others, and with the entire universe. The word Hoa seems to imply merely being amiable, yielding, and avoiding conflict. However, its true meaning is far deeper and broader. Harmony is not a blind compromise, nor is it a sign of weakness that makes one submissive to others. Harmony is the art of living in alignment with nature, knowing how to maintain balance in all relationships, with oneself, with others, and with the universe. Confucius once said, "The superior person is in harmony, but not identical to others, while the petty person is identical, but not in harmony." The superior person can be in harmony with everyone without losing their own distinct character. Conversely, the petty person only follows the crowd, conforming outwardly, but lacking true internal harmony. Thus, harmony does not mean melting into the collective to be like everyone else, but rather preserving one's unique essence while remaining in balance. Look at nature. A river flows gently, but that does not make it weak. It may meander to avoid mountains and bend around rapids, but it remains steadfastly on its course to the sea. The bamboo tree is pliant. It bends with the wind and bows in a storm. But once the storm passes, it stands straight and proud as ever. This is the spirit of Hoa. Knowing how to adapt and integrate, but without losing one's core. There is an old story about a king who offered a prize for the painting that best depicted perfect peace. Many artists painted scenes of green meadows, blue skies with white clouds, and calm lakes. But the winning painting surprised everyone. It showed a rugged mountain with a stormy sky, lightning cutting across the horizon. In a small crevice in the harsh rock face, a small branch grew, and on it, a tiny bird was peacefully making its nest. The king said, "This is true peace. It is about maintaining harmony in your heart even amid a storm." This story shows that harmony is not about finding a place without storms, but about remaining calm right in the middle of them. In daily life, harmony is first and foremost about one's relationship with oneself. Many people think they are in harmony with others, but in reality, they are in constant internal conflict and struggle. A soul full of contradictions can never be at peace. To be in harmony with yourself is to accept both your strengths and weaknesses, to be forgiving of yourself, and not to torture yourself with impossible expectations. When you are in harmony within, your relationships with others naturally become more effortless. Harmony in social relationships is not about pleasing everyone, but about knowing when to be firm and when to be flexible. A truly harmonious person is someone who can sit with anyone, from a king to a beggar, without losing their sincerity. They do not need to pretend to be accepted, nor do they need to compete to prove their worth. It is their authenticity and composure that create an allure, making others feel comfortable in their presence. In Taoist philosophy, harmony also means living in alignment with nature. A tree does not compete for sunlight, it simply stretches according to its instinct and by doing so, flourishes. Water does not compare its depth or shallowness. It just flows quietly to where it needs to go. The same is true for people. When we stop forcing everything to conform to our will and instead learn to harmonize with the flow of life, we will find that things unfold more gently. An important distinction to make is that harmony does not equate to weakness. A person can be yielding but not allow themselves to be suppressed. They know when to retreat, and when necessary, they can still advance. Like a skilled martial artist, they do not strike to show off their strength, but only act when truly necessary. It is this composure that makes them unconquerable. There is a fable about two wolves living in the same forest. One was aggressive, always wanting to prove its strength, so it constantly fought with every stranger it encountered. In the end, it was exhausted and collapsed. The other chose to observe, acting only when necessary, and knew how to avoid meaningless conflict. As a result, it survived for a long time and earned the respect of the entire pack. Its survival came not from violence, but from the wisdom of maintaining harmony. When a person reaches Hua, they no longer have to struggle to control everything. They know how to listen, how to understand, and how to balance. They can stand within a group while still maintaining their unique identity. And this harmony leads them to an even higher state. Stillness, Tin, the pinnacle of wisdom and inner freedom. Tin is the ultimate state to which the three principles of compassion, simplicity, and harmony lead a person. If compassion opens the heart, simplicity makes life humble, and harmony creates balance, then stillness is the pinnacle. The absolute tranquility of the mind, undisturbed by any storm. Stillness does not mean sitting motionless or abandoning the world. A person can live amidst a bustling marketplace, yet their mind remains clear, like a lake reflecting the moon, or a mirror free of dust. Stillness is the ability to master emotions, not to be driven by greed, anger, or delusion, and not to be shaken by praise, blame, gain, or loss. There is a famous Zen story about a master who was falsely accused of fathering a child. The villagers, furious and cursing, brought the baby to him. He simply replied with 3 words. "Is that so?" From then on, he raised and cared for the child without a single word of complaint. A year later, the real father confessed, and the villagers, filled with regret, came to ask for the baby back. The Zen master simply replied, "Is that so?" Throughout the entire ordeal, his mind was like a lake, without a ripple, undisturbed by external events. That is stillness. In modern life, people easily lose their stillness. Constant phone calls, a barrage of notifications, work pressure, and social competition keep the mind in a state of perpetual tension. Even when sitting still, the mind continues to race, like a monkey jumping around, unable to stop. the biggest lack in people today is not material possessions, but a stillness of the soul. Stillness is not about being detached from life, but about being still inside to observe life. When the mind is calm, we can see the true nature of things, unclouded by emotion. An angry person often makes poor decisions, while a calm person sees more options. A great leader is not the one who acts the fastest, but the one who can remain composed to make the wisest decisions. In martial arts, a true master is not one who strikes wildly, but one who knows how to stand still and observe, making a single precise move when necessary. This stillness does not come from laziness, but from perfect control. The same is true in art. A great musician is not just one who knows how to play notes, but one who knows how to create silence. It is the silence that gives the music its power. There is a parable that tells of a man who came to a sage and asked, "Master, what is the secret to wisdom?" The sage gave him a glass of water and then added a few drops of black ink. The water immediately became murky. Then he left the glass of water on the table. Slowly the ink settled and the water became clear again. He said, "Your mind is the same. If you keep stirring it, it will always be murky. Only when it is still can it be clear enough to reflect all things." Stillness is also the foundation of freedom. A person who has not attained stillness is always a slave to external circumstances. A word of praise makes them happy. A word of criticism makes them sad. A small gain excites them. A small loss causes them pain. In contrast, a person with stillness is not controlled by external factors. They can find joy in poverty, be at peace in failure, and not become arrogant in success. The pinnacle of stillness is not the absence of emotion, but that emotion does not control us. We can be sad, but the sadness does not drown us. We can be angry, but the anger does not turn into hatred. We can be happy, but the joy does not make us lose ourselves. That is true freedom. And upon reaching stillness, a person understands that peace is not something bestowed from the outside, but a treasure that is always present within each person. Life may change, but a serene inner self cannot be shaken. When the four principles of compassion, simplicity, harmony, and stillness converge, a person achieves a state of complete living. Each principle is a step on the ladder, supporting and complementing the others. If one is missing, the path becomes unbalanced. Compassion without simplicity can lead to indulgence and then to downfall. Simplicity without compassion can make a person stingy and cold. Harmony without stillness can turn yielding into weakness and compromise. Stillness without harmony can make inner peace seem cold and distant. It is this complete combination that creates a fulfilling life, one that is both compassionate, wise, balanced, and firm. In reality, the sages of old have always used these four words as their guide. A king who knows compassion will love his people, who knows simplicity will ensure the longevity of his nation, who knows harmony will avoid war, and who knows stillness will make wise decisions. An ordinary person is the same. When they carry compassion in their heart, simplicity in their lifestyle, harmony in their conduct, and stillness in their mind, they will find a simple yet lasting happiness. Today, amid the frantic pace of modern life, these four words become even more precious. The more society develops, the more people tend to forget their roots. We chase after material things and lose our compassion. We indulge in pleasure, and forget simplicity. We compete and no longer know what harmony is. We are noisy and cannot find stillness. That is why so many people, living amidst comfort, still feel empty and insecure. If we can pause for a moment and reflect on ourselves using these 4 principles, we will realize that happiness has never been out of reach. An act of forgiveness can resolve hatred, compassion. A simple lifestyle can lighten the burden of worry, simplicity. A sincere attitude can bridge gaps, harmony. And a calm mind can help us overcome all challenges, stillness. In the end, compassion, simplicity, harmony, and stillness are not distant concepts for sages but a path for every ordinary person. Anyone can practice these small steps. A kind act, a small restraint in spending, a moment of yielding instead of arguing, a minute of sitting still and breathing. These small things, accumulated over time, will open up a great life. And then, we will understand that happiness is not about how much we have, but about how we live with compassion, simplicity, harmony, and stillness. Once a person has truly internalized the principles of compassion, 2, simplicity, Kim, harmony, Hoa, and stillness, Tin, every step they take in life becomes firm, like a great tree with its roots deeply planted in the earth. The wind may blow and storms may come, but those roots will not be shaken. Within a family, these 4 principles are the foundation of happiness. Parents who embody compassion raise their children with love, without the burden of expectations. A family that lives with simplicity, even without great wealth, finds contentment and peace, free from the worries of debt and competition. Members who practice harmony can resolve conflicts, and laughter can replace arguments. And when each person maintains stillness, the family is no longer rattled by meaningless anger, but filled with a profound sense of warmth and tranquility. In society, compassion brings people closer together. Simplicity prevents the waste of resources. Harmony helps communities avoid division, and stillness allows a collective to stand firm in the face of challenges. If every individual were to practice these 4 principles, society would gradually build a foundation that is compassionate, sustainable, and peaceful. On a larger scale, these 4 principles are also the path for humanity to live in harmony with nature. With compassion, we cherish the life of all beings. With simplicity, we learn restraint in exploiting natural resources. With harmony, we live in accordance with the laws of the earth, neither forcing nor destroying. With stillness, we listen to the silent voice of nature, and from that, we find a sustainable way of living. It can be said that compassion, simplicity, harmony, and stillness are the convergence of wisdom and virtue, a timeless reminder for every generation. We do not need to look far to find them. They are present in every daily choice, in how we treat ourselves, others, and the world around us. A person who holds on to these 4 principles can be at peace no matter what their circumstances. This peace is not an escape but a silent strength, a strength that allows them to smile in the face of hardship, stand firm amid storms, and shine through their own character. This is the highest state of a human life, to live simply yet richly, gently yet with determination, quietly yet with freedom. The 4 principles of compassion, 2, simplicity, Kim, harmony, Hoa, and stillness, Tin, are not just ancient moral concepts, but a path to living a life that endures. Compassion expands the human heart to embrace others. Simplicity keeps life modest, avoiding the slavery of material things. Harmony brings balance to all relationships, and stillness offers the absolute freedom of the soul. When these four principles combine, a person achieves a complete life. They know how to love without being weak, how to be restrained without being austere, how to be in harmony without losing themselves, and how to be at peace while remaining powerful. This is the portrait of a truly free person, free from ambition, free from fear, and free from the invisible chains that entangle our lives. In an ever-changing world where people are increasingly prone to confusion and fatigue, compassion, simplicity, harmony, and stillness become a guiding compass. They do not lead us to a distant promised land, but simply open the path back to ourselves. And perhaps the final message that these four principles want to convey is simply this: live with compassion, live with simplicity, live in harmony, and keep your mind still. When you do this, you not only find happiness for yourself, but also contribute to sowing the seeds of peace for the entire world.